Welcome to Golf and the Good Life, your guide to golf travel across the pond. I'm DJ Jones, joined as always by my friend and colleague Connor Evers. Connor, it is great to be back with you today, especially given that, we have kind of entered the heart of the holiday season for those of us who love golf across the pond. How are things on your end?
DJ, it is a pleasure to be with you as always today. And I don't know if it's the coffee or Links Golf on TV that's going to happen the next coming days with the Scottish Open as well as the Open Championship next week. But I am quite pumped and excited. Everything is great here. Again, we're essentially about halfway or so through the travel season for 2023 here in mid-July. And groups are enjoying themselves. As we keep saying, weather's been really good. And like I said, looking forward to Open Championship week as well as the Scottish week at Renaissance Club next week as well. So I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, pleasure to be with you, DJ.
Yeah, it's obviously two fantastic weeks. I really wish that the European Tour still kept the Irish Open in the slot before the Scottish, so we'd have that trio. But really looking forward to obviously the Renaissance this weekend hosting Scottish Open as we record this anyway, and then of course headed to England's Golf Coast for the Open Championship. And anyone who has been online, it has of late has no doubt been kind of bombarded, if you will, with content related to the Open. And that's just kind of what happens around these major championships. And there is a lot of great stuff out there if you're looking for sort of a preview of the Open or what have you. Royal Liverpool itself, we mentioned in last week's episode, has an awesome Instagram feed, RLGC Hoylake. Go give them a follow. Our friends at Cookie Jar Golf, they've put out two outstanding videos from Royal Liverpool. One of them is a couple years old. I think it's just called "The Story of a Golf Club," and it's absolutely fabulous. It's so good that we actually put it on our website because it's that great. Golf Digest has a great hole by hole feature. The golf photographers like Gary Lisbon and Kevin Murray, they've got some great stuff going around the tournament. And all of that is to say, there is a lot of content and it's impossible to consume it all. But what we have decided to do is take a different approach and talk about the travel aspect of things, not only as it relates to Royal Liverpool, but England's Golf Coast as a whole. Connor, it's kind of a strange thing. England's Golf Coast is this fantastic region for golf, and yet when most travelers start planning that first trip, they go, "Well, I want to go to St. Andrews and Muirfield," and then the next one is, "Well, now I need to go to County Down and Portrush in Ireland," and "Well, now I need to see the Highlands and the west coast of Scotland," and then trip 4 is, "Well, how about Southwest Ireland?" And before you know it, they've racked up 4, 5, 6 trips before they've even once considered England's Golf Coast. And frankly, it deserves a little more love than it gets, does it not?
For your first time to the British Isles, obviously this isn't, probably one of the top picks of choices, but you're definitely right. It deserves to be, a little bit higher on that list. And there's 3 open rota courses there: Royal Lytham and St. Anne's, Royal Birkdale, and Royal Liverpool, as DJ mentioned. And these are the kind of the 3, cream of the crop courses, if you will, air quotes, within this area. And the biggest factor is these 3 courses are on the open rota, and including this year in 2023, all 3 of those courses have hosted the Open Championship a total of 34 times, which is fantastic. And this week, we also had the great news, which strengthens this area as well, that Royal Birkdale will host the Open in 2026. So that will be a total of 35 times. So, if you're looking for one area where maybe the group is, you guys are all employed and you can't take a ton of time off, you can do just a week's trip. You can go over, you can fly into Manchester, which is about an hour's distance from England's Gulf Coast in this general region. You can set up shop in one hotel for the whole duration of the trip. You do not have to leave. You unpack your bag once when you're there and you pack it back up to leave. And you're there and can play all the Great Links golf course in one area and be close to all the courses. So I think that's a huge benefit. Again, just the logistics standpoint, as well as just these three open rota courses. And I'll also add that this is maybe the strongest second tier of courses in all of Britain, with Hillside and Formby and a few others, which we'll talk about. It's not only just these three, there's other great ones in and around the area that can make an excellent golf expedition to this area. And, like I said, it's easy logistics. A lot of our groups will stay in the town of Southport. Some of these courses are a 10-minute drive, from your lodging to the golf. The furthest drive you'll have actually is Royal Liverpool. It's a good hour of drive from there. But, if you stay in Southport, all your drives are going to be very, very short. So we just talked about the southwest of Ireland, and this could not be two completely different ends of the spectrum when it comes to drive times, logistics, driver hours, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. As you can see, if you're looking at Google Maps of this area, if you have a little bit of extra time, I mean, you could pair this with another region, potentially the north of Wales, or the west coast of Scotland with Turnberry, Royal Troon, Prestwick, etc. So a lot of our groups historically will just go to this area for 1 week long trip, if you will. And I would say the biggest benefit of this area, we keep going on and honing on about the Old Course and Muirfield and Portrush and County Down and the availability, what it looks like for next year. And there's still great availability for a lot of these clubs and courses in and around this area for next year. And we will see what happens. Obviously we expected a lot of interest without knowing that the Open was going to be at Birkdale in 2026, but it will increase a lot more interest going forward for the years to come. But like I said, as of right now, there's still really good availability, and you can get a really solid trip with those three open rota courses on your itinerary. So great area, DJ.
Yeah, it is remarkable every year around the Open, and I've mentioned it in the past podcast. As the guy who keeps an eye on our analytics for the website and so forth, you can always tell when the Open's coming. I think we received somewhere in the neighborhood of like 4 to 5 months worth of inquiries last year within the 10 days surrounding the Open. That's a great point. If you're looking for 2024, this is probably an outstanding place to consider, but that window of opportunity is going to close soon, not only because of the Open and the spotlight as the news gets around that it's coming back to Birkdale and so forth. All of that's going to drive the demand. But speaking of the spotlight, this week, or during the Open week, I should say, Royal Liverpool is front and center. Even though all three courses are part of the Open Rota, Royal Liverpool just has something about it. And it's a special club. Dates all the way back to 1869. It's one of the oldest in England as a whole. And the course originally started, it shared its ground with the local horse race track. I have never been able to fully wrap my head around hitting golf shots from tire ruts from the horse carts or hoof prints or what have you. I mean, I don't know what kind of local rules must have been in effect back then, but the elements of that connection to the horse track are around the course. A couple of the holes have names that call back to it. Up by the clubhouse, there are some posts that have these pineapples on top, and that is a throwback to the pineapples that were used as trophies for the horse races. And as it ties to the Open, just a phenomenal history with the Open Championship. This is their 13th time hosting the tournament. Walter Hagen won here. Rory won here in the last event back in 2014. Bobby Jones won here during his Grand Slam year. And, for all of us who were old enough to remember, Tiger just dismantled the place back in 2006 with his 2-iron. I can remember, I think I watched him hit every shot of that tournament. And, he famously pulled driver once the whole week. And if memory serves, and I tried looking this up and I could not find a definitive answer, but I'm pretty sure the only time he pulled driver that week, he hit it into a gorse bush. I have just this clear picture of him taking a drop, and I couldn't find a video of it anywhere. So if it exists, please send it to me, because I want to know whether I'm right on this or not. But either way, the guy just was a machine of hitting those fairways that week when it was all burnt out, as it kind of is this week. I think that it's getting a little crispy with all that sunshine that Connor has been talking about. But one thing about Hoylake is that the course has continued to evolve over the 150 years that it's been around, And since the Open was last year, there have been a number of changes. The most notable of those has to be the new 17th hole that is in play this week. Before I describe it, I should probably mention that the course that the Open plays actually starts on what is generally the 17th hole is the first during the Open. So they play 17, 18, and then the third hole is the first hole for the course as it exists for members. So when you hear me refer to the 17th hole, I'm talking about during the Open Championship. But this used to be a par 3 that actually played the exact opposite direction, and they took the hole and essentially flipped it around. They pushed the green back up against the estuary. It is 134 yards. That is it. But the green, it is, you don't wanna miss the green. It's not a great way to try to make par, especially if you're trying to win the claret jug. And this little hole could absolutely decide who takes it home this week. And that's really kind of wild. Just a fantastic links. It will end on what is generally the 16th hole, really long par five, the stadium effect grandstand, of course, that circles it. And it will no doubt be an awesome scene. But the last thing to mention about Royal Liverpool, at least from a visitor standpoint, is sometimes the golf clubs in England can get a little bit of a reputation of being maybe a little stuffy, maybe not as welcoming as you might find elsewhere in, say Scotland or Ireland. And let me tell you, Royal Liverpool could not be further from that. The membership there are truly proud of their club. You're guaranteed to find a warm welcome there. Our founder, Sam Baker, listed the clubhouse as one of his favorite 19th holes. And it all centers around the opportunity to sit and enjoy some conversation with the members of the club. But the other thing is, the clubhouse itself is basically a little museum. Last time I was there, I spent 15 or 20 minutes just walking around, reading the plaques. There's a case that has clubs that were used by each winner of the Open, and of course, Tiger's 2 iron is in there, an old Nike with TW stamped on it. It's pretty sweet. But all of which is to say, as we always say, leave some extra time during your visit to Royal Liverpool to head inside the clubhouse, enjoy the camaraderie, chat with the members, soak in the history that's around. But this is not your only heavy hitter, if you will, in this area. Connor, there's 2 other members of the Open Rota that are generally going to headline your trip to England's Golf Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I go to Royal Birkdale, that'll be the next one. I'll have to note, and to your credit, DJ, there's a lot of videos out there right now of Hoylake and the course. I'll have to say, we put up and DJ put up a great video of all the holes, a slideshow of all of them. And it shows the difference between the whole number of what the members and visitors play comparatively to the tournament play. So if you're confused on it, I honestly think our video is one of the best out there online to show which ones it is. So I'd have to add that in there too. But as DJ said, next one up is Royal Birkdale. But Royal Birkdale is fantastic. Again, one of the again 3 open rota courses in that area. But hosted the Open first in 1954, and it was also one of the last courses to be added to the Open Rota as well. So which is pretty interesting. In 1961, Mr. Arnold Palmer actually won the Open here, and his win here really sparked essentially kind of a turnaround for the Open and kind of how it was viewed. At this time back in kind of the 60s and just this time in general, the Open was kind of viewed as the odd major out. The journey across the pond was difficult for Americans. Air travel was obviously way different back then. Also, the other big factor is it fell around kind of the calendar of the PGA Championship. So again, a lot of the great American players at that time had to decide, am I going to travel across the pond to play the Open or play it safe and play PGA Championship here stateside? And as you can probably tell, a lot of Americans decided that the latter and to stay home. And really, when Mr. Palmer won, at Birkdale, it changed the trajectory and again how the Open was viewed to kind of the general public and added a lot of popularity to it. And more specifically, nowadays at Royal Birkdale and kind of the course itself, the clubhouse is very unique. Again, if you've received one of our proposals for England's Gulf Coast or just seen it online, It's a very Art Deco feel and style to it. On the outside, you can kind of tell if you look at it, and I'll say this, it kind of looks like an ocean liner. The back of the clubhouse, there's a great patio there. So after your round of golf, I would advise a pint or two or so afterwards there to enjoy your completion of the round. Royal Birkdale and a lot of these courses, just in general, from a planning perspective, a lot of them, there's going to be closures on the weekends and some just kind of essentially, if you will, random dates during the week. But when you're planning a trip like this, and how we do it too, is we prefer you to travel on the weekends because a lot of the courses are open for visitor plays during the weekdays. So it's very much like, the southwest of Ireland, where we talked about it last week in the last podcast, that Ballybunion and Tralee are closed on the weekend. So, it helps if you're playing and being able to play on the weekdays. And the nice, also kind of big factor of Royal Birkdale is you can actually add to your round, to your green fees, what they like to call the Royal Birkdale experience. So a part of that, you play 18 holes. There's a meet and greet in the clubhouse. There's a 2-course meal as well after your rounds, and before your rounds, there's also a gift pack as well that you're given. So also kind of adds to the experience at Birkdale. And the last time the Open was held there was in 2017, and you probably remember this is when Jordan Spieth won the Open there. If you remember it like me, I was biting my nails coming down the end because in Jordan Spieth fashion, it was coming down to the wire that he usually likes to do, and usually makes those nice 6 to 8 foot putts, to get him out of trouble and to save. But he hit his tee shot, I believe, way right on one of the holes, and it's ball pretty much ended up on the practice facility on the range, and it was right by the Titleist and all the different club manufacturer vans, and was able to, I think if I remember correctly, he got it out of there and then got it up towards the green, I think just short of a bunker, pitched on, and then made a fantastic downhill putt to make par. Just again in Jordan fashion, where we're all nervous and rooting for him. But again, as we said, the Open's going to go back there to Birkdale and in 2026. So looking forward to that. 9 years since the Open's been there too. So I'm looking forward to it. And that is essentially Royal Birkdale in a nutshell.
Titleist could not have set up a better ad if they had actually planned an ad at Royal Birkdale. I mean, the guy's hitting there. I think he hit a hybrid off the, like you said, off the practice facility, and their trailer is right there in the background. I mean, how, like, it's almost like the Nike golf ball at Augusta, on 16, just hanging on the lip, like with Tiger. For me, what comes to mind is the when he drained that, I don't know, 50-footer and then pointed to Greller to go get that.
Mhm.
And, and that was a really awesome moment. Goosebumps just thinking about it, and look
Yeah.
forward to Birkdale having it back. And, maybe he'll be back on form and back in contention again for a second one. But rounding out the trio of open rota courses, we have Royal Lytham and St. Anne's. And of the three, this is the one that's kind of overlooked by many travelers. And part of it is recency bias. The course hasn't hosted the Open since 2012, back when Ernie won. Candidly, there was a pretty great argument to be made for Royal Lytham in 2026, given A, how long it had been since it held the tournament, and B, that it was the 100th anniversary of Bobby Jones winning the tournament for the first time. It seemed pretty teed up for Lytham, wasn't meant to be, not sure exactly why, but nevertheless, the history here is pretty rich and obviously more than worthy of a reason to put it on the itinerary. Gary Player won the Open here. Seve won it here twice. Back in '79, he famously got up and down from the car park, but he was the only guy under par that week, which speaks to, if you want to say, the knock sometimes against Lytham is that it's a tough course. At one point, it had over 200 bunkers. I think they've scaled it back to around 175 these days, but it is a course that requires not only accuracy, off the tee and on approach, but just smart play. You cannot go to Royal Lytham and just bash away and hope to skirt all of these bunkers, because you put it in most of them and it is a one shot penalty, and that's the defense against the course. But one of the unique things about Royal Lytham, at least from a visitor standpoint, is it's one of the few clubs, especially among open rota courses in particular, that has any kind of accommodations. The Dormy House adjacent to the clubhouse has 16 ensuite guest rooms. Perfect choice for a group that just really wants to immerse themselves in the golf, in the history, and so forth. May not be ideal for that group that wants the nightlife, but if you are a golf centered group and you want something that's unique over there, this is it. Like I said, the history speaks for itself. I mean, Bobby won back in 26, and out on the 17th fairway, there's a plaque that commemorates it. He hit a fairly miraculous shot out of some scrub area that more or less sealed the tournament for him. And there's a painting that hangs in the clubhouse, and the club that he hit is actually there as well. So, not one to be missed, though it is sometimes a little overlooked of the 3, and hopefully gets back, into open hosting duties one of these years. But obviously, it's got a bit of a wait still ahead of it. But Connor, like you said in the front end of the episode, while the 3 Royal courses are the headliners and what draws most golfers here, the second tier is arguably as good as it gets.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely right. And you come for those 3 open rota courses, but like we said, there's other really good golf in this area. One of the other clubs is Hillside. They just actually did a renovation to the course, and I remember we were receiving some pictures. I think last year, maybe around this time or last spring. I can't exactly remember when, but I was like, wow, this looks very sweet. It kind of looks and a little bit Pinehurst-y. I think a lot of the courses, in and around that area, can sometimes. And Formby is fantastic as well. One that you want to play kind of the front end of your trip. Both courses have also hosted the amateur championship. Hillside, correct me if I'm wrong, DJ, just hosted the amateur championship a few weeks ago. Is that right? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would say Hillside has one of the best back nines in Britain as well. I think Greg Norman has mentioned that too on his kind of review of Hillside. Another course you're definitely going to want on your itinerary is Southport and Ainsdale. Has not hosted the Open Championship before, but it has hosted the Ryder Cup actually twice, which is great. And in 1937, it was the first time the visiting team had won the Ryder Cup. So it's got a lot of history there for the Ryder Cup as well. And some other courses you want potentially on your itinerary is Formby Ladies Club. That'd be a fun one to play on arrival day or just essentially your first round of golf. Wallasey as well, which would be great. West Lancashire, which would be another fun one. I think just did the final qualifying for the Open Championship, which is really cool and interesting, and Hesketh Golf Club too. So, like I said, outside of the 3 open rota courses, you've got great golf in and around this area. And as I said before, you can stay in one hotel in Southport and you can play again 10 courses, if you will, or so, without ever having to change hotels, which to a lot of folks, that is a deal breaker. So yeah, I mean, the lesser known courses, if you will, are fantastic. And again, I put air quotes on that because they're just very good.
Yeah, I mean, if Hillside and Formby were located, say, anywhere else, they would be what we would consider a quote first tier, but no shortage, like you said, of outstanding golf. And the fact that you can go to Southport and base yourself there for the whole week and never change is just cannot be topped. But this being golf in the good life obviously features pretty prominently in our plans for our members. And this is the one region where, compared to, say, Southwest Ireland, where we just spent 3 episodes, and St. Andrews and the Highlands of Scotland and all of these other outstanding areas, England's Golf Coast is a little light when it comes to the good life.
Mhm.
Are certainly some things to see, but this is probably an ideal destination for a group that is golf centered. For the blended groups where you've got golfers and tourists, there's probably only going to be a couple days worth of sightseeing, and then the tourists are going to be standing around saying, what are we going to do?" Right, Connor's twiddling his thumbs on the other end of this call here. But don't get us wrong, the things that are around definitely belong on your itinerary. But if you're expecting a week worth of good life activities to keep a tourist occupied, you might struggle. But talking about Southport, that's like Connor said, that is the town where most of the golf groups will base themselves. And the Vincent Hotel there is a great little boutique hotel that our members have used for years. Fantastic spot. The Bliss is another good option in town, but the key is that you've got a great assortment of pubs and nightlife and restaurants and what have you all right there in town. But most importantly, you are, in most cases, minutes from the golf course. The one exception, as we alluded to earlier, is Royal Liverpool, where you've got about 50 minutes to an hour. But in some cases, if you really wanted to stretch your legs, you could almost walk to a couple of the places. So the benefit of the logistics of Eaglewood's Golf Coast just can't be overstated. But for some groups, Southport may not be the right choice, and there are some other options and certainly some other things to see. Connor, why don't you take us into some of those?
Yeah, and again, Liverpool's another great area, and we'll have some groups stay there, but not many. And I would, to DJ's point about the touring, I would say a lot more of our groups that may have the occasional tourist that may be looking for some things, to do in this area. They're more than likely going to stay in the Liverpool area because there are a few more, things to do. But the trade-off on that, as DJ said, is the longer commute to the golf courses. You're obviously closer to Royal Liverpool and Oil Lake there, but you're going to have, an hour's drive or so each way to the rest of the golf. So that's why a lot of the groups will decide to stay in Southport, again, closer to the majority of the golf. But, when it comes to Liverpool, just in general, what a lot of people want to do and do a tour of is this is actually the hometown of the Beatles. So, there's a museum there, kind of the Beatles story and how they started, kind of just how their career evolved over time. And the Cavern Club is not to be missed in this area. The Beatles actually played there, a bunch of times, and there's live music almost every night as well. So something to check out. Some other areas you may want to look out for is the town of Chester. It's about an hour from Southport. It's about south or so from Liverpool, southeast, I should say, from Liverpool. So it's a cathedral town, and it's nice day trip if maybe you have a day off golf, or for example, there's golfers that are playing Royal Liverpool, and we've got some tourists with your driver host can drive you to that area and tour there for a day. So there are some things to do in the area. So we may come off that, no tourists. I mean, we just have to advise and see what the group wants to do. And the other cool thing is we'll have some groups too, like I said before, that may do the west coast of Scotland, but another area you could tour is Wales. I mean, Wales is very close. So if you're looking for a pre or post trip potentially, or again, if the group's playing Royal Liverpool and the driver host can bring the tourists down and maybe tour a castle in Wales for a little bit during the day, or again, if you have a day off golf, you can do that as well. So there are things to do. It's just not, if you will, plentiful like the other areas that we talked about on past podcasts and probably podcasts to come. So
Another one to add to the mix. Well, first off, the Cavern Club, like you mentioned, don't miss it. Whether you are a Beatles fan or not, you will walk out of that place smiling from ear to ear. But another thing, that ties into this area especially is soccer,
mm.
football, whatever you want to call it. And it just so happens that this region happens to be home to three powerhouses, if you will, in the English Premier League between Manchester City, Manchester United, and Liverpool. Everton is also there in town. You can take in a game if you're over in spring or fall, while the season is still running. You might want to check if Everton is in fact still in the Premier League before you do that. But, you've got some options, to take in a game, and it's just a really unique experience if you haven't, done so, even if you're not a fan of soccer, just to be able to go and soak it in. If it happens to be the off season, Old Trafford and Anfield, they both have tours. I'm sure that the Etihad does as well. But we've had groups that have gone to Old Trafford in the past and have loved the experience. And, Connor mentioned Wales. And if you have jumped on the bandwagon of Welcome to Wrexham, Wales is only about 45 minutes to an hour from Southport. And if you're a fan of what Ryan Reynolds is doing down there with his soccer team, go visit it. If nothing else, just to go walk around the town. It would make for a fun little day trip. Connor, I think we have done everything but talk about the Open. Two picks. Who does your heart tell you will win, and who does your mind tell you will win?
All right. I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for a while. And when the Open's been at Hoylake, it has produced fantastic champions. Walter Hagen, Bobby Jones, Tiger, more recently, Roy McIlroy. I think especially with the changes of 17 and just some of the holes and, looking at it a little bit more closely this week, it's going to take a champion that is a really good iron player. I've got Scotty Scheffler, I think. That's what my heart tells me. If John Rahm can stay out of his way, I think he could win by 5 or 6 shots. But I think one of those two, I don't think it's going to be someone random that's not playing well. I don't think so. I don't think it can produce that, but that's my picks, TJ.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, and you took my one mind pick. I think it does have to be Scotty Scheffler this week. He's been playing rock solid. If the putter shows up, no one will beat him. The heart says Rory, but candidly, I'm kind of tired of the narrative, and I just want it to end. I want the guy to just
Mhm.
get this one more major so we can stop talking about it. But until he gets the Rory strut back, I don't think it's going to happen. But I also have to throw Ricky. He was runner up back in
Yeah.
14. He just won,
Yep.
here at Rocket Mortgage. I think
Yeah.
that's where he
Yep.
won.
Detroit. Yep.
And, the guy's been over playing, links golf here this week. He was just back
Mhm.
at North Berwick, with his push cart and soaking it up. And I just like to think that the golf gods are going to
Yeah.
reward, not only his perseverance, but his desire to go out and enjoy links golf as it's meant to be played. And, so I think I'm gonna throw Ricky on top of all of them.
I love the pick. I mean, he won at Gullin for the Scottish
Yep.
Open, so he's won in links golf. So I like it. I think I'm just excited. I don't think it's going to be someone that is not playing their best golf right now, and I think all of our picks would be good. So we'll see. Time will tell, obviously.
We will see how it goes, but, for now, we have covered a lot of ground today. We will be sure to link to everything we talked about in the show notes. Some of those, social media and content follows, we'll throw those in as well. If you haven't followed, the guys who are roaming around Scotland playing golf right now, go pull up North Berwick's Instagram, if nothing else, and watch Jordan and JT play the pit, yesterday as, the sun was setting. Just so cool to see. But we'll have links to all that in the show notes. But if you have any questions, as always, shoot us a DM on social media, or you can email us golf@haversham.com. But otherwise, thank you as always for tuning in. Enjoy the 151st Open Championship. We'll be back again soon, but until then, we wish you plenty of golf at its finest and life at its best.